Welcome to the Talking Risk podcast. We discuss all things risk, hazard mitigation, insurtech, industry insights, and more. I'm your host, Brian Harris, Risk Control Director with FCCI Insurance Group, and with me is Ralph Hines, Risk Control Specialist with FCCI Insurance Group. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today for another episode of Talking Risk. 1 in 5 traffic crashes involves a rear-end collision. The bad news is that these crashes lead to significant injuries, death, and economic costs. The good news is that rear-end collisions are preventable. Ralph, good to see you, man. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Brian. Thank you so much. It's good to see you as well.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about the topic of rear-end automobile crashes. This is a hot button issue for us here at FCCI. We've identified a trend of these rear-end crashes, and it's amazing the economic dollars that go along with something that's even a minor rear-end crash. 1 in 5 traffic crashes, as I mentioned just a minute ago, are rear-end crashes. The economic costs associated with distracted driving related crashes is around $100 billion annually, and that's billion with a B. 9% of fatal crashes involve distracted driving. Texting while driving increases the risk of crash 23 times. And according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, cell phone use or texting while driving is a contributing factor in almost 6 out of every 10 rear-end collisions. That's amazing. So, Ralph, we're going to go a little different today, and you're going to start us off with a scenario in our Hey Ralphie segment. So, take it away.
Hey, Ralph, Ralphie boy!
This is Ralph.
Hey there, Ralphie boy! Ralphie boy!
Ralph? Ralph?
Hi, yeah, Ralph. How you doing there, Ralphie boy?
Hey, Ralphie boy!
All right, will do. Thank you, Brian. Well, this is normal. Actually, this little scenario is an everyday. It potentially can happen to each of us. But let's imagine for a minute. We're leaving home, we're leaving work, right? And we put our phone on our passenger seat and it rings. And we look at it and it goes straight to our infotainment system. And we click to answer, right? Because we're not picking up our phone, so it's okay. It's our best friend or your best friend calling and they got some bad news. So as you're trying to understand what your friend is saying, you don't see a vehicle in front of you that is stopped. Your rear end the vehicle and the other driver dies at the scene. And he has a passenger and he's airlifted to the hospital, but he survives. So what's going to happen next? Do we ever think about that? Well, let's look at it. And realistically, what's going to happen? Your phone records are probably going to be subpoenaed. If they show you were using your phone, you could be charged with a serious crime. Let's face it, any lawsuits awards, they could go nuclear, which is over $10 million. Someone else's life could be changed forever. Your life could be changed forever. You could be permanently injured. You could serve jail time. You could be ruined financially, and you could lose your job. And the worst case, you could die. So if possible, just a quick tip, leave sooner, drive slower, follow basic rules, and live longer.
I like it, Ralph. Thanks a lot, buddy. Here at FCCI and Risk Control, we talk about liking to keep it simple. The power of 3, keeping things minimal, keeping things within your control. So, along with what you mentioned there in that scenario, there's a myth that I've heard countless times from people when you're talking about being involved in a rear-end collision. And they'll say, yeah, the car in front of me just stopped, or it stopped abruptly and I didn't have time to stop. So they think it's not my fault. It's the guy in front of me's fault because he stopped abruptly. He caused the crash, not me. Well, the reality is, like you mentioned, there's a very, very good chance that you are going to be cited for being completely at fault, or in some places, at least partially at fault. If you are rear-ending another vehicle, you have failed to maintain control of your vehicle. You have failed to drive defensively. You have failed to maintain safe distance. So the good news is this stuff is preventable, right? With a few simple tips. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first tip, Ralph, is following distance. Why don't you go into following distance a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, I sure will. And I like to use the National Safety Council's defensive driving formula because following distance is including this, but it's short and sweet and it's three items, just as you talked about. So, really, what they say is to see, think, and act. So, what we're saying is when we're talking about seeing, is we're recognizing the hazard, right? So, think about driving. You're constantly using your eyes, right? Based on what you see, you think about the information and you make a decision. But we have some tools that are inherently in each person, and it's our eyesight. And we don't think about this a lot, but we've really got two eyesights, right? We've got a peripheral and we've got a central vision. So our peripherals, when we stick our arms out to the side, we can see something, but we can't, it's not really in focus. But our central vision, that's used to identify objects, and it involves just completely zoom focusing on that. And what that involves is scanning, which is one of the tools, right? That's part of this to prevent rear end accidents. So, man, we should scan ahead, scan around, scan behind. This key principle is to move your eyes every 2 seconds and snap a picture with your central vision. So, a fact to remember that we don't think about this either, Brian. The average driver only sees 50% of what's going around in a traffic picture. The reason is the lack of proper eye movement that we're talking about. And the average driver tends to be fixated on things. And this becomes a habit, which can be deadly. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. So we should try not to fix anything. We should scan our mirrors, look left, look right, look down the road, look for an escape route, right? You know what this is referred as? This is referred as aiming high in steering. And what this means is that you don't make steering adjustments based on what's directly in front of you, but what you're seeing down the road. And if you don't recognize a danger or potential hazard early enough, you're never going to be able to avoid the hazard in the first place, right? So the first thing we want to do is use our eyes and use this gift that we've been given. The second one, understanding the defense. This is thinking, right? What do we always say? Plan your work, work your plan. And that involves thinking. And, Brian, a little caveat, I do a lot of driver safety training. I always ask the guys, hey, is driving a job? 100% across the board, everyone says yes. So that's why I'm like, why don't we do our job then? So understanding the defense, right, and our thinking. So we need to know some basics, right? We need to know how to scan. We need to how to use, say, following distances. What about what if? You can ask yourself the what if questions. We have all these tools, and part of what we're trying to do here in risk control at FCCI is to share these tools out there with our customers. What if that driver stops or turns suddenly? Are we ready? Do we have that plan? And the third thing is acting correctly in time, right? That's doing. That's putting our plan into action. Remember, other drivers may act in time, but they may not act correctly. So I think when we talk about stopping distance, because that's the main thing I think we can use to control these, Brian, is space and visibility, right? Space to allow proper stopping distance, or at least actions to avoid collision with that vehicle ahead, and visibility to detect what's going on around us. Let's face it, if we're tailgating, right, which is one of the main causes for rear end accidents, then we have no visibility. We have no time to stop because we're tailgating them. So we got to increase our space between these vehicles. So what is stopping distance? Right? What is the rule? I read today in preparation here, some people say that 6 seconds is the rule. That's a long time. If you've ever been on the interstate, 6 seconds between you and the person, that's more than a football field, right? That's a long distance. So in general, the rule is 3 seconds, right? So how do we do that? We locate a stationary object, right? A tree, a sign, a billboard, a bridge. We count the seconds from the time the car passes that object until we pass that object. And if we're within the 3 seconds, we want to increase our distance, right? If it's a heavier vehicle or the weather conditions are bad, then we want to increase it to maybe 4. So if someone pulls in front of you, like here in Nashville, I go back to do your job, right? Just go ahead and decrease your speed and maintain that following distance again. So I kind of went off a little bit, but there's so much information. And I get passionate, Brian, because it's, as you know, this is both of our passions. And our goal this year is to reduce these rear end accidents.
This is Talking Risk, the risk control podcast from FCCI Insurance Group. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or by visiting our website, fcci-group.com. Click on Risk Control, then Risk Control Resources, and select the episode you want to hear. All right, Ralph, thanks for those tips. When I'm in front of customers, if I have one thing that I can mention, it's following distance. If you want to prevent yourself from being in a rear-end crash, increase your following distance. You mentioned at least 3 seconds. Ideal condition, ideally 3 seconds in a normal passenger vehicle, light truck. You mentioned heavier vehicles, pulling trailers, adverse weather. You need to increase that distance. And 6 seconds may seem like a lot to you when you're out there on the road, but if it's raining or you're in winter weather type conditions like we have right now, that 6 seconds could be the difference between getting home safe and disaster. You had mentioned during that segment there about scanning, checking our mirrors, scanning the road around us. That was going to be one of our other tips, is to make sure not only you're following distance, but you want to look beyond the vehicle in front of you. What is the vehicle in front of the vehicle in front of you going to do? Are you leaving yourself enough room for stuff that is happening beyond the other driver in front of you's control? So we talked about following distance. We looked at scanning ahead and some other principles to help prevent these types of crashes. The next item that I think is critical to avoiding a rear end collision is eliminating distractions. Why don't you talk a little bit distractions? What is distracted driving and what can we do to prevent it?
Yeah, well, distracted driving, as you're aware, and I've told you this before, I believe it's an epidemic. I believe it's across our country. I believe it's an individual responsibility to when you get behind the wheel that you do your job. So just driving distracted is doing anything that takes your mind, your hands, or your eyes off the road, right? So anything out there that causes us not to do our job is a form of driver distraction. So anytime you reach for an object, anytime you get distracted by outside stimuli, the chances of your accident are dramatically going to increase. So it just really comes back to doing your job, keeping your distance from the scanning, and just doing what we're supposed to do when we're behind the wheel.
I like to think of a statement here that we all should be cognizant of, and that is with our new vehicles having hands-free systems built into the steering wheel, navigation screens built into your dash, doesn't mean that they are distraction free. So remember, hands-free is not risk-free. If your mind is taken off of the task of driving, whether it's through a conversation, Bluetooth in your vehicle, or whatever, looking at a navigation screen, if your mind is taken off of that task of driving, you're at increased risk for a crash. So hands-free is not risk-free. And another phrase that I think is relevant and simple to remember here is eyes up, phone down. Keep your eyes on the road and put the phone down. We've talked about two issues and we've touched on them separately. And as I mentioned in the beginning, they're related, right? Rear end crashes and distracted driving go hand in hand. So if you can increase your following distance, know what's going on around you, and do away with the distractions, you are setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, just think about the other side of that coin. And as you know, I have three daughters, right? And one of the things I tell them is I don't want them going through life as a result of an accident where it was their fault because they were on their cell phone, right? I believe that's selfishness, Brian. And I believe that's why I say come back to where we all need to be held accountable. Because I know I wouldn't want them or anyone going through life knowing that their selfishness resulted in, a death of a person and all the things that goes with that.
That's right. And you mentioned earlier nuclear verdicts. You mentioned nuclear verdicts, and I think of things that a business owner should be doing as a standard practice. Okay. We've talked about the things that a driver should be doing behind the wheel: following distance, scan ahead, eliminate distractions. Business owners have responsibility too. They can't be in the vehicle with their driver all the time physically. But with the idea of a nuclear verdict, how is that business owner going to answer on the stand during litigation when he is questioned by a plaintiff attorney if he was doing everything that he could to ensure safe operation of his fleet? So, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, there's some things that you need to be doing as well. Number one, lead by example. Number two, train your drivers and document it. FCCI provides a variety of resources for our policyholders to take advantage of. There's info on the Risk Solutions Network. There are driver training videos in the streaming section. There's driver training modules in the learning management system. FCCI has some driver safety videos on our YouTube page. And then we've got safety meeting handouts and flyers. So there's information available for you to use. Also, make sure you maintain your vehicles. Those brakes, are they checked regularly? Are you keeping a log of when your vehicles are maintained? Who does the maintenance? You want to have a record of that. And then, last but certainly not least, we need to talk briefly about technology because telematics and dash cameras are tools that a fleet owner can use to help supervise drivers and reduce the risk for crashes and reduce the instances of distracted driving. So, what does telematics do? Telematics gives us data on hard braking, hard acceleration, hard cornering. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from that that a business owner can use to implement corrective actions. And then when it comes to dash cameras, Ralph, you've got customers who utilize both telematics and dash cameras, but dash cameras can help vindicate our driver if they were not at fault, and B, it can also help with the advent of AI type technology that it can warn a driver in real time, hey, you're following too close. Hey, put your phone down. Hey, you need to stay within your lane. So these are all tools that are readily available in the marketplace today. So I think as the legal environment continues, I think a business owner who gets put in that position of having to answer for the safety of their fleet, that they're going to have a difficult time explaining why they have not implemented telematics or dash cameras. So my advice to our policyholders and to anyone listening to this podcast is that you should check out the technology that's out there today and realize that there is a significant return on investment. If we can prevent just one crash, we are winning. So keep that in mind. Are you doing everything that you can to ensure the safety of your fleet? Ralph.
Them are great points, man. I really appreciate you sharing them. And, one of the things that I've been doing lately is, that's one of my subjects. I have a plan when I'm in front of a customer and I share what a nuclear verdict is. And most of them, 90% have never even heard the term yet. And once I explain it, what their response is? Well, Ralph, how do I protect myself? And it's exactly the things that you talked about that opens that door so that we can share more, showing them that, man, we are on your side. We just want you to go home every single day, and we want to reduce these accidents. I'd love to prevent them, but that's a pretty high goal right there.
Yeah, it's important to realize that if we can prevent just one crash that could be catastrophic, we are all winning. Families are going home at the end of the day, drivers are going home, businesses don't have downtime. We can manage claims more effectively. I mean, the factors that go into the increased costs, I mean, here inside baseball for our listeners, when it comes to commercial auto insurance, FCCI and most find it very challenging to make a profit on the line of commercial insurance. And I know even for you and me, Ralph, when we have to pay for our personal auto insurance premium, you're like, man, why is this so expensive? And I know our policyholders on the commercial side feel the same thing. Like, man, why is my auto insurance so expensive? The reality is that insurance carriers are not profiting. We're not gouging our policyholders on auto. We're not making money. This, and that's due to a variety of things. Primarily, you have increased litigation, increased medical costs, increased repair costs, increase replacement part cost. So all of these things go into play to make claims very expensive and burdensome for the insurance company, for the policyholder, for everybody involved. So if we can do something simple to avoid a catastrophic collision, why wouldn't we? Right?
Yes, I agree.
At FCCI, risk is our business. We provide services that help business owners better understand and minimize the losses they face every day. Our experienced and credentialed professionals have worked in a wide variety of industries, including agriculture, construction, manufacturing, retail, service, and wholesale distributing. FCCI's risk control consultants meet directly with policyholders to learn the unique nature of their business, combine individual recommendations with online resources and tools to create a custom-tailored plan. Our risk control programs provide clear goals, action plans, and survey schedules to help policyholders accomplish their safety objectives. To learn more about FCCI's risk control resources, contact your agent or visit our website, www.fcci-group.com, and click on risk control. Keep it simple, everybody. We talked about 3 things. Increase your following distance. Scan ahead. Eliminate distractions. That's all I've got, Ralph. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up today?
No, other than to say that we are available. We have a lot of materials available to assist you either through our website or in person. Let us know and we'd be glad to help. It would be a privilege to help you guys.
Let's leave our listeners with a couple of the slogans that we had worked up here. First one I thought of, eyes up, phone down. You had one as well.
I had one. I've had a couple, and I keep going back and forth. Tell you the truth.
Here we go. See, think, act.
Yes, sir.
And space plus visibility.
Yes.
Drivers, remember those things. Keep it simple and stay safe out there. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time. This is Talking Risk, the risk control podcast from FCCI Insurance Group. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or by visiting our website, fcci-group.com. Click on Risk Control, then Risk Control Resources, and select the episode you want to hear. For Talking Risk, I'm Brian Harris, Risk Control Director with FCCI Insurance Group. Recording copyright FCCI Services Inc. 2022. The opinions expressed in this recording don't necessarily represent those of FCCI, its personnel, or affiliates. This recording is provided for informational purposes only, does not attempt to identify all potential hazards or remedial actions, and is not intended as legal or professional advice. FCCI, its personnel, and affiliates shall not be liable for any loss, death, damage, or expense arising out of your reliance upon this recording. You are solely responsible for complying with applicable law, including any changes in the law, and for the safety of your operations. Please consult your legal advisor with any questions or concerns.